And we are live. RJ, you ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, Internet. Welcome to another live Q&A this Friday, November 8th, here live from the offices here at Edge. Oh boy, I can see the delayed feed now and how I'm just looking up in space when we first go live.
Yeah.
But good old delayed YouTube, make us living in the past while in the future. So good handful of stuff to talk about today.
Yep.
Once again, quick introductions. I'm Paul, CEO and co-founder of Edge, joined here by
RJ, QA and support.
Head of QA and support. So when you have any issues and problems or just general questions, a shoulder to lean on when using the cryptocurrency world, RJ's here for you, and both on voice and email.
That's right.
And through
Chats.
our support chat and whatnot. So very lucky to get him or one of our other great support staff. And obviously with that, he gets a lot of the questions, and this is the live Q&A, so we invite you to go ahead and say something on our YouTube channel and ask us any questions you might have. But one of the biggest questions that we got repeatedly over the past about 2 to 3 weeks, with people having some issues in Edge, was one that we looked into pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And that was...
There's a lot of detective work, but for the iOS crashing issues.
Yes, so we had iOS stalls, crashing, basically app shutdown.
Yeah.
Where Edge, specifically on iOS, would just randomly shut down as people were using the app. And it tended to be worse if people had large accounts and whatnot. And we were trying to figure out what changed. Like, what did we change in the app? Did we make any updates to the code? Was it due to a new release? And it seemed to actually be across the board on all versions of our app. We kind of went back. And then we isolated it, ironically,
To WebView, right?
to, well, not just WebView, but to iOS 13.
Yeah. I think that's 13.1, 13.2.
Pretty much 13.1, 13.2. I don't know if anyone actually got 13.0. That may have not gone out to the public.
Right.
But iOS 13, which was just recently released last month, at least to the public, we had been running, at least I'd been running
Yes.
iOS 13 in beta for a number of months, but specifically 13.1 and 2 introduced an issue which actually would shut down applications randomly. It was just very, very, very aggressive about shutting down applications to conserve resources and whatnot. And this effectively is what people were seeing. And so a little unfortunate from the user experience point of view, but what we did verify.
Yeah, that on iOS 13.3, it's running a lot smoother. So either upgrade all the way to iOS 13.3, but I think that's still in beta, right?
It's still
so you
in
might
beta.
have to do that. Or don't update and stay on iOS 12.
That's
and you
pretty
should be good to go.
What RJ said is basically the big tip of the day. If you're on iOS 12 or even iOS 11, actually, one of our devices, we still test older versions of iOS. If you're on iOS 11, stay on iOS 11 or 12 because you can't go from 11 to 12 anymore.
Right.
For the most part, Apple makes
It'll
you
just
upgrade to
skip
the
it.
latest thing.
Yeah.
And so if you're on 11, stay on 11 if you're an Edge user. And if you're on 12, stay on 12. But as soon as you see Apple make iOS 13.3, once again, 13.3, once you see that is available for broad use, then go ahead and feel free to upgrade. We're using it right now in 13.3 as a beta release, and it's looking stable, solid. We're not having any of the shutdown crash issues that were occurring in 13.1 and 2.
Right on. And Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also other wallet applications that were seeing the same issue. I think Jax was one of them in regards to iOS 13.
Yeah, it wasn't specified what issues were being seen, but I had saw an article, I believe from Jax on their
themselves,
website,
yes, their blog.
JAXX is another blockchain wallet, that they also recommended users not upgrade to iOS 13 yet. And
Right.
so fortunately, we at least saw an upgrade that does fix the issues that our users were seeing, and it looks solid. It's been working great on our test devices. So keep an eye out for that. And this is just one of those challenges I think of mobile and app development is that we're building on foundation that's moving.
Yeah.
Right. As we build, the ground underneath us is changing, and suddenly if it changes, we have to kind of build differently on top of it. Fortunately, with this, Apple changed it, but then they changed it back.
fixed it.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
fixed it. They changed it back. But frequently, we're having to catch up to changes that break applications, and you have to fix them retroactively. So it can be definitely a challenge in the software world. So apologize for any inconvenience that this may have caused. Android, to the best of our knowledge, was not affected, so there weren't any issues on Android. If you are by some chance stuck on an iOS 13.2 version of the app, and you need access to use the application, but it's shutting down on you due to the iOS issue, one thing you can do is
Yeah, you could also try turning it on airplane mode. You should be able to
Very good
log in
point.
successfully, load up the account. You might not be able to send, but you can still access your private keys, so that's always good.
very true. So if you like definitively, hey, you got to get my funds off, you can access your private keys by going into airplane mode. Basically, the application uses less resources if it's not talking to the network, and therefore Apple isn't shutting down the application. So airplane mode, you can do that. But as well, you can also just log into an
Log
Android.
in another phone.
Another phone,
Yeah.
Android device, or a different iOS version, and then you effectively should be fine. And then we're really crossing our fingers that Apple updates iOS to 13.3 very soon,
Yeah,
and then this
hopefully.
issue just gets resolved.
Yep.
So cool. All right. So I know that was one of the big questions. Second big question, which has been happening also for the past week or so,
EOS.
EOS.
Yes.
Our beloved EOS. The supposed to be the answer to scalability woes and cryptocurrency.
The next level after Ethereum.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like Bitcoin 3.0, right? I think
Yeah.
Ethereum, actually no, Bitcoin was 1.0 back in 2013. And then I think
Right.
2.0 was when they made Bitcoin kind of tokenized assets, programmability. Ethereum kind of was 2.0. And then EOS being kind of an Ethereum 2.0 or Bitcoin 3.0 with its unique fee model.
Yeah.
But we're noticing some serious issues.
Yeah.
What's being the big thing that people are
Huge, big
talking about?
congestion.
Huge congestion.
Yeah.
And so what does this look like? So in Bitcoin, huge congestion just simply means you pay
More fees.
huge fees.
Yeah.
All right. You can pay huge fees on any of these blockchains that are based on Bitcoin. So I'm not throwing Bitcoin under the bus, but the architecture there makes it where fees are very variable. Now, the long-term vision or the grand vision of EOS is that things are just free.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to worry about fees.
Yeah.
You create your account, you pay some amount right when you create your account.
That
Then
you
after that,
stake like in the CPU, so you
Yeah,
can be able
exactly.
to send, recharge over
exactly.
time.
And
Yeah.
so the problem that people are having, we should probably do a recap of how EOS kind of works in that regard and how it's different from Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But to give you an idea of what people are seeing today, the complaint with the congestion, like what are people not able
Yeah,
to do?
not
due to this
able to
problem?
send because
Not
not
able to
enough
send money. Mm-hmm.
CPU resources, and we'll get into that further.
And then also to create an EOS account,
Yeah, it's costing about $130 worth of EOS when back then it was just like pennies
like
or
half
under,
an
yeah,
half
few
an EOS,
dollars.
like one or 0.5 EOS to create an EOS account with
Yeah.
that unique name that you get to choose.
And I think this past hour was like 30 something just
Yep.
to create a wallet.
Yep, exactly. So people are wondering, what does it mean to spend money to create an EOS wallet, and what is this congestion and how it's affecting users?
Right.
So to kind of rewind a bit on the architecture of EOS versus Bitcoin, and so Bitcoin and Ethereum, when you send a transaction, you as the sender are paying for each and every transaction, calculated in the cost of that transaction to the network. In
Right.
Bitcoin, it's almost purely the storage, like the size of the transaction
Yeah.
in operations to execute that transaction. And how many inputs it has, outputs, basically how many addresses is the money coming from, and how many address is the money going to. In Ethereum, it's more of
The complexity,
the complexity of
the
the contract of
you
sending
go.
and receiving. Sending and receiving Ether is pretty much the exact same cost, but the complexity of the contract. But plus, there's the congestion of the network, which affects the dollar-based value of the
Yeah.
fee. So the more people are using the network, the less space there is for nodes to compute. The higher you have to bid to pay
right to get through.
to get through. Do you want to be one of the higher payers to get through? EOS, by contrast, changes this model and makes it where instead of paying for every single transaction, you take some money, some EOS, and then you stake it.
Yeah, that's been already staked.
Yeah, it's already
Yeah.
been staked, and you stake it in your account. You can actually increase and decrease the amount you stake at any point in time. There are
Yeah.
some time delays. So you can stake some EOS, but what that gives you is this really weird amount of resources that are measured in CPU, network,
right.
and RAM or storage. So
Yeah.
RAM you actually don't stake, you buy a certain amount of RAM.
Okay.
But to send and receive money, you don't really spend any RAM.
Right.
So this is not unlike, when you buy a computer.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Or when you rent a computer.
Yeah, so it's more like renting.
When you rent a computer, like cloud service providers, you pay for a certain amount of CPU power, you pay for a certain amount of network. But when you rent, you pay per month. In EOS, you kind of pay once, and then you use, and then it recharges
Yeah, over time.
over time.
Right.
And so at Edge, when people activate an EOS account in Edge, we have them pay a certain amount of another currency like Litecoin and Bitcoin, and then we convert that to EOS and stake enough for them to be able to do what we consider to be a reasonable amount of daily send and receive transactions.
Yeah,
You know,
like enough transactions to do in a day.
like how many, if you're only using EOS as your one and only cryptocurrency, how many transactions do you think you would be doing a day?
Not too much, but maybe you want to have at least like 5 to 10 transactions
Yeah.
that you could do. So I
Yeah.
think that's fair.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think we targeted the ability to do about 5 to 10 transactions an hour.
Oh, that's
Right.
actually
So
more than
we
enough
made it
for
we
most
made it
users.
plenty for the average user. We staked enough, and that was based on how much CPU and bandwidth you would need to do a transaction, and the cost of that CPU and bandwidth to do a transaction, and the recharge rate.
Right.
So what's effectively happened is that EOS is having what they're calling their crypto kitties moment.
Yeah. So kind of like when Ethereum had the crypto kitties and it was really congested, now they're having
Yeah.
that.
Everyone was buying crypto kitties and
Yeah.
bidding on them and whatnot, and suddenly the network was congested with people wanting to buy and sell and trade crypto kitties.
Took higher gas to get it confirmed.
Yeah, and on the EOS network, a DApp was launched that allowed people to use their CPU to mine a coin.
So that's what happened.
So instead of mining a coin with your physical CPU computer, you're literally mining a coin
Right.
using the CPU in your account.
Got
and,
it.
And since CPU kind of recharges, it's pseudo-free, well then people said, sure, great, I'll just mine free money.
Yeah, because like you're just mining it for free.
Exactly, but
Yeah.
now the competition for CPU resources started to drastically increase, and people were staking large and large amounts of EOS. Because when you stake, it's not like you lose that EOS.
Yeah, it's just like someone borrowing
just
it. You're
locked.
It's just EOS.
It's just locked, then you can unstake it later. So to get more CPU, you could just stake more EOS in your account, and you're getting effectively free CPU. The problem is that the amount that you recharge over a period of time, if you use a certain amount of CPU, then it recharges. The recharge capacity is relative to, and pro rata, the total amount of EOS staked for CPU.
Gotcha.
So as a very simplified example, if there's like this much CPU recharge capability in the entire EOS world, and I staked one EOS for CPU recharge, and RJ, you staked one EOS and no one else did, we would split the recharge 50-50.
Right.
But if there's more EOS being staked, I don't get as much of that recharge.
Right.
I get my pro rata share of CPU recharge. But now a ton of people are staking a lot of EOS.
So let's
to
say
get-
whales.
Whales,
Yeah.
are staking a ton of EOS to get the CPU recharge so that they could use their CPU to mine this coin.
So when that recharges, you get a very small amount relative to what the whales have.
Super tiny amount. And so therefore, the recharge is slow, and also the amount of CPU that you need in general to do a transaction becomes much higher. So the theory in right now, just I think we looked. What was the current cost of creating an EOS account as we
It
looked
was
right
like
before?
37, like right before this.
37
About
EOS?
30-ish, yeah.
Right, so about $130 worth of EOS to create an account. And I think when we had looked a few days ago, it was like $250
Oh.
to create an EOS account. And realize that's not across all wallets and whatnot. That's what we at Edge, that's based on the current cost of CPU, net, RAM.
At the time.
At the current time for you to stake to have a usable account.
Yeah.
Like what we deem as a usable account to do, several transactions per hour.
Right.
You could create an EOS wallet for $3. You just wouldn't be able to do much with it.
Yeah.
Right, so that's a bit based on what our heuristics are choosing. But since it is going down, it was 250, now it's 130, and having listened to several different podcasts and talked to people in the EOS space, thank you so much, Ash Oro, if you're listening to this, and if you guys know him, he runs a podcast on EOS Talk Radio. He's been a great resource to understand what's going on in the network, and many of them feel like it's a temporary problem. Like it's not going to be this way long term, and that as the network starts to die, people realize, oh, this isn't a token that they necessarily care
Right.
about.
So let's get down to the question that most users will probably have. How much longer do they have to wait?
Yeah.
What do you think? I know you said not too much longer, but is there a time frame?
If I took the cost of creating an account where it was 2 days ago to what it is today, and linearly continue that trend line from 250 to basically half that at $125, $130,
Yeah.
and continue the trend line where I'd say by end of next week, we
Okay.
should be back to normal. But once again, I can't promise that that trend line continues down exactly. Not everything in the world is just linear like that.
Right.
But if it were, then yeah, by end of next week, the cost of creating an account might go down to very small, $3 to $5, $8, which is where it was before, which shows the relative congestion of the network, which should be, for the most part, back to normal.
Got it.
Where the amount that people have staked and the recharge rate lets them do their, handful of transactions an hour.
Got it.
Without a problem.
And for users that are not able to send because of the cost and whatnot, if they just wanted to move their EOS wallet into a different wallet, they still could, right, with their private seed and restore it on another EOS
They
wallet.
could, but
It's
they'd
not
make no
moving
difference.
Yeah,
You're
it's
not
just-
really moving
It's
it.
just moving it to a different interface.
Yep, you're just using a different, exactly, that's the key word, is when you move your private keys from Edge to another wallet or another wallet to Edge, you're
Yeah.
just moving the interface by which you talk to the blockchain.
Yeah, it's still the same wallet, same wallet name on the chain, but you're just moving it from Edge to whatever other wallet that you plan on moving it into, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And more importantly, it's the same amount of EOS staked
Yeah.
for that specific wallet.
Right.
And so if it's unable to be spent, it still would be unable to be spent at the same time.
Gotcha.
So no changes there in that regard. So the one solution, which is somewhat complicated, and I don't have the precise names of the services that you could use. I think Blocks.
Yeah, I think
.io.
Yeah, Blocktalk and
What-
EOS Spark, I think, is
Spark
another one.
are services that will loan you CPU
Right.
temporarily. So you could pay them a little bit of money, and they'll loan you some CPU resources, which you can then use to send out some funds. And so that's the interesting thing about staking in EOS is, you can have a wallet,
Yeah.
you can have some EOS in it. I can have a wallet, I can have some EOS in it. You can use the EOS you have in your wallet and stake it for yourself to get CPU
Right.
or network. I can use my EOS to stake it for myself, or I can use my EOS and stake it for you.
Stick it for other people.
Stake it for other people.
Nice.
And that's where EOS's dream is that as you build apps in the space, it's not necessarily the user that's paying for the resources. It could be the app developer, which is not unlike how Twitter works.
Yeah.
So Twitter pays for their servers, you don't.
Right.
Right. So app developers now have this option of letting the developers pay for the resources instead of the user. That's what's kind of unique about EOS and what they hope to achieve that's fundamentally different from Ethereum.
Right on.
Yep. So yeah, cross fingers. Hopefully EOS congestion starts to die down, but it is a known issue. I apologize if this is causing any issues for people, or if you're scared when you see the giant cost to create an EOS wallet. I'm sure no one's creating wallets right now.
Right.
But
And this is
hopefully-
across all other wallets, but again, depending on the exact stats and how much CPU they're going to give. But for the most
Exactly.
part, they're in the same boat as us.
Yeah, it depends on how much you had staked in the past.
Right.
So as this number might have gone up over time, like before it was like 1 or less than 1 EOS to create a wallet, and the congestion rose, as the number got higher and higher and higher, people may have been creating wallets
Yeah.
at higher cost, $10, $20, $30. And if you did pay a large amount to create your wallet, as the congestion starts coming down, you might be more usable sooner
Yeah, 'cause you
than
already
other
have it
people.
staked at a
'Cause
higher
you've
price.
already staked a larger amount of money.
Yes.
And realize too, one important thing is even if you pay $130 to create your EOS wallet,
Yeah.
you're not just giving up that money.
Yeah, it's still inside that wallet
It's
name.
staked. So
Yeah.
you could actually unstake it as the prices go down.
Right.
So it's not like you're buying something that's just going to go away.
It doesn't get burnt.
It doesn't get burnt. You can at a future point in time unstake that money and turn it into just regular EOS, and then potentially turn it into Bitcoin. Now in Edge we don't have a method of unstaking, but you can take your private key, put it into another app like
Like Scatter.
Scatter or whatnot.
Blocks.
Exactly, and then unstake that EOS and then just turn it into money, sell it back into dollars, turn it back into Bitcoin or Litecoin, which you might have used to pay for that EOS wallet in the first place.
Right.
So all is not lost, right? It's a temporary staking of the funds if you absolutely need to transact on EOS.
Exactly.
And you can stake more money into the current account you already have with Edge.
Okay, nice. So you can add one.
So
more
yeah,
to it.
so if you already have an account in Edge, you can't transact the money in it. You've got a bunch of EOS in it, but you can't transact it because you don't have low CPU. You theoretically can create another account,
Yeah.
$130 worth
Yeah.
of EOS, and use that account to stake for your
Stake
first
for the
account.
other account.
Right, stake some of the CPU for another account. Now, that interface is complex. It's not what I recommend beginners do.
Yeah.
If you do have some questions, you can give us a call. We might be able to
Yeah,
help you
we'd be
and walk you through
happy
that.
to help you out on that.
Right, but it is something that's theoretically possible. And then, once the prices start to come down, you could unstake that $100+ that you might have staked originally.
Right. But the main point, yeah, money not lost. So
Yeah,
you're good.
money's not lost. It's not locked forever, and there are options to get it out.
Yeah, just think of it as like Stellar XRP. You have the 20 minimum balance. It's locked.
That's
it's
locked.
There. Well, it's locked
That's
forever,
that's
but
locked.
in the future, could the change?
It
the rules
might.
can
It
change.
might. In EOS, it's definitively much more
Flexible. You
it's
can
much
change
more
it.
feasible that you'll be able to get that money out.
Yeah.
In XRP, Stellar,
It's locked, but it's
very,
still
very
part of
locked.
the balance.
Yeah.
It's not burnt, is what I'm saying.
Yep. You
Yeah.
can't unstake it in XRP and Stellar. Whereas in EOS,
Yeah.
you could always just simply, I'm just going to unstake it.
Yeah, to make
You
it
know.
spendable.
Yep, exactly. Okay,
Okay.
cool. So moving on, other thing that hit the news.
Yeah, current rate limiting issues on Edge.
Got it. So this is another question we're getting from some of our users. And this is definitely more specific to Edge, and we'd like to describe a little bit about our architecture. So right now, people are experiencing some issues with being able to log in to a new device or create a wallet or pin login
Right.
with Edge. So we're going through basically server load due to a DDoS attack.
That's right.
People just kind of hammering the server from all over the world from a bunch of like a botnet of IP addresses,
Yeah.
and that's just taking up server load and just limited resources on the server for someone else to come in and log in.
Right,
Now realize what exactly does it mean to log into Edge,
right.
right? Logging into Edge is fundamentally different than say like logging into Twitter.
Yeah,
So with a centralized service like Twitter, you 100% need their servers to do anything.
yeah. But with us, we can still do some stuff.
You could do a ton of stuff because Edge is mostly 90+% operates on your device, on your phone, on your tablet.
Right,
And so the only thing that this really hinders for users, this kind of DDoS attack and resource issue that we're having, is for people to create a new account
a brand new wallet.
or a brand new wallet
Right, pin login.
to pin login.
But if you've been logged in before already, you can still do a full password
Yep.
or biometric login, and you have full access to the account.
Yep.
You can still send, receive, do anything normal, but just you can't create a new wallet until we get our servers up and running.
Yep, exactly. So the servers are up and running. They're just under
Just,
heavy load.
yeah, under a heavy load.
They're under heavy load due to this DDoS attack. And so, just to recap, you hit it on the nail,
Yeah.
right on the head. You cannot log in onto a new device because on a new device you need to access
You
the
need to
server.
access the server at least once.
To download your encrypted keys. You
Right.
can't create a wallet because you need to access the server to back up your encrypted keys.
And you can't pin login because it
You
needs to
can't
talk to
pin
the
login.
server.
Right. The pin login is a split key mechanism whereby our server holds one half of the split key and then your phone holds the other half. But
Right.
when you have logged in already on your phone at least once, you've got
Yeah.
your encrypted keys in your phone, you enter your password, that just decrypts the keys that are already on your phone.
Yeah, it's already on your device.
Exactly. And you can actually talk directly to the blockchain networks and various APIs.
Yeah.
That doesn't require our infrastructure, no edge servers involved. And then as well, if you biometric login, that also uses the secure element on your phone to decrypt the keys.
Right.
And from there you can transact on all the blockchains. So we've architected our system to minimize the impact of this type of an attack, minimize the impact on our user base,
Right.
but it is still existent. It's still something that people have to be aware of, and so we're definitely working on it. Our developers are working on it right
Yeah,
now
we'll
to
hopefully
see if we
get
can
it
mitigate
back
the
up and
problem.
running soon. Or it
Yeah.
is up and running, but to
Obviously.
mitigate that extra load on the servers.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that extra load and get some of this, filter out some of this DDoS traffic.
Yeah.
And get our users more fully up and running. Obviously, we care, even though the existing users can transact fine. We care because we obviously want
Yeah, we
enable
want
new users.
New users. We want new users to also be able to make new wallets, right?
Exactly. Got a question from Christopher Gorshon. Wait, what? DDoS? I tuned in late. Blah, blah, blah. Well,
Okay.
just to kind of give the recap, if you
Yeah.
tuned in late, we were noticing a heavy amount of server load of just simply a DDoS attack that's just trying to take down the servers and
Right.
flood it with poor traffic. And
Yeah, so you might have issues like logging in with PIN or creating an account. But to counter that, if you've been already logged in, just log in with your full password or biometric, and everything is just fine.
it should be fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's just for, again, new accounts, logging in for the first time,
Yep.
and PIN logins.
As well, we'll be upgrading the servers just to be able to handle a heftier load in general.
Nice.
It's something we generally need to do anyway because we've got more users now.
Yeah,
so
it's
Edge is
climbing.
growing. So cool. All right. So last thing that's crossed our plate that people are asking us about, because especially how does it affect people on Edge?
Yeah, this is going to be pretty interesting. So the next one, the referral
Ethereum?
program.
Actually, no, the
Oh,
Ethereum
okay.
hard fork first.
Oh, okay, the Ethereum hard fork. Yes.
Yeah, so that's something that's obviously relevant whenever people hear the word hard fork. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what's going to happen to my money? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I've given talks about forks on Bitcoin and other chains and whatnot, so a lot of people do get a little scared about this. Fortunately, in the world of Ethereum, generally there's hasn't been too much to worry about relative to security of your funds, because most of the forks, with some exceptions, Ethereum Classic, most of the forks have not resulted in a chain split.
Right. Right.
So that's the thing to remember, is that a hard fork is kind of a poor term. It's simply, hey, we changed the code, we changed the consensus.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there was an actual fork in the road.
Right.
Right? It doesn't mean that there was a chain split. And the past many different forks on Ethereum have not resulted in a chain split because there has been consensus. Love it or hate it, the leadership of Ethereum is fairly, centralized for better or worse. And since it is somewhat centralized, people agree, through Vitalik's word that yes, we're going to adopt these new changes. So the latest hard fork, the Istanbul hard fork, is slated for December 4th.
Yeah.
Or block
9,069,000.
Yeah, 9,069,000, which is expected to be on December 4th.
Expected.
That's the expected date. Oh, it's expected, because remember, blocks aren't exact. The exact date and time of a block being mined is not precise. It's kind of an estimate, but around that time. And so this is yet another one of the many hard forks that are leading up to Ethereum 2.0, which is meant to be the grand scaling solution for Ethereum that will implement both sharding and proof of work.
And that's
on Ethereum
supposed to be
blockchain.
Finished in 2020, so next year.
The hope, yes, the hope, 2020. I think this is a make it or break it year for Ethereum. And actually crypto in general for smart contracts. Smart contract crypto. I think a lot of the industry is going to feel like if Ethereum can't pull this off, maybe not in 2020, but if they're not making progress that feels like this can work, then confidence in smart contract blockchains, I think, is going to plummet.
Wow.
But they've been on good progress. It's getting closer and closer. And so the details of this specific hard fork, I don't have precise details on what's changing, but it shouldn't affect users of Edge. You can continue to transact as normal your Ether and tokens. However, it will affect some specific smart contracts.
Okay.
Fortunately, all we deal with are ERC20 smart contracts to send and receive money, and a standard non-smart contract transfer.
Right. Just transfer of assets.
Yeah, just transfer of assets. But smart contracts created by the Aragon project, apparently a few hundred of them, the Aragon is a DAO creation platform.
Yeah.
Allows you to create and manage decentralized autonomous organizations. And apparently hundreds of their smart contracts will effectively be broken by this Istanbul hard fork.
Wow.
And so unfortunate, and it kind of goes to show, we are kind of still in early bleeding edge. Don't put a ton of money in these complicated projects. So I don't know how that's going to be resolved.
I wonder how Aragon's going to resolve that issue.
It shouldn't affect their token per se, but it may affect the smart contracts that utilize the token.
Right.
But something to be aware of, but at least for the listeners and Edge users, shouldn't have anything to worry about. We expect that Edge would follow the hard fork in case there is an actual chain split.
Yeah.
If there was a chain split and miners decided to stay on the old chain, basically the APIs that we communicate to, we're expecting will follow the new hard fork chain, and that's where your funds will be effectively following. So just as an update for you guys on the hard fork, and it shouldn't affect Edge users as a whole. Cool.
Okay.
All right, we're about actually out of time. So 12:30, we'll just close out with some events.
Okay, event sounds good. So you guys will find Paul in December at Blockland, Cleveland. You want to tell us a little bit more about that event?
Yeah, Blockland, Cleveland. It's a second annual event hosted in Cleveland, as you might expect. Blockchain technology, cryptocurrency. I was there last year. It was a great event. It did have a bit more, at least the attendees, it felt like it had that focus on blockchain, not crypto.
So it's more of the blockchain
It's kind of
slogan.
like the blockchain slogan, but admittedly, I feel like it's also a great opportunity to educate some of those folk and
Yeah.
open their eyes that it's not just about, if not primarily about blockchain, but it actually is about Bitcoin and crypto. And so I used that opportunity last year to definitely get into some conversations and open some eyes to people to say, no, like blockchain, that's so 2015.
Yeah, that was
Like,
2015 or
that's 2015.
2014.
Like, come on, guys. Like
Right.
last year was 2018. This year 2019. We're almost in 2020.
Keep up with the times.
And so there was definitely some good cryptocurrency presence. There were miners there,
Yeah.
other projects, exchanges. So there was some of that. But I think the crowd was the one that was like, oh, it's about blockchain, right? Because they also had a lot of industry presence, like large established enterprise players. I don't know if companies like IBM, Microsoft were there.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So some more mainstream players.
but it was well attended. I think well over 1,000 people attended, and so we're hoping for the same thing again this year. I'll be talking about exchanges and wallets in my talk, which will be on Monday morning. So I believe it's Monday the 9th of December. And the conference goes from the 9th to the 11th. So look forward to catching anyone over there if anyone's headed over to Blockland Cleveland. And then back to back right after that, I'm literally going from Cleveland straight to Uruguay.
Yeah, for La BitCon.
For La BitCon, the Latin American Bitcoin Conference. It's been going strong, I think, since 2013.
Yeah, and it's been pretty fun. At
Great,
least when I
great
went
event.
last
Yep,
time.
RJ
It
was there
awesome.
last year. I'll be giving a talk over there this coming year, and happy to network with anybody who happens to be there. And I possibly will do a mini roadshow through maybe one or two other stops in South America. Hoping to do maybe Colombia and Brazil, but that's not confirmed yet.
Got it.
But for now, Blockland Cleveland and La BitConf. And if you're still listening, Chris, we also have a meetup, I believe, in a couple weeks here in San Diego. Forgive me for not knowing the exact speakers of that meetup this year. Who is it? Really quick, let's look it up. We got our computers, RJ. Who
Let's
can
do
get
it.
to it first? Meetup.com. RJ's way faster than I am.
Casper Labs.
Casper Labs, which
Yeah,
are doing
November 21.
which is a fork of Ethereum implementing the Casper protocol. So
Oh, I see
come
what
join
you're
us.
saying.
It's going to be, where is it this time around?
Okay, clicking this.
We are going to be, looks like out in the middle of the water, according to
Yeah.
Google Maps.
To be determined. It looks
Okay,
like.
so location to be determined. Hopefully it's downtown over here, a few blocks away from our office, which is where we hold the Bitcoin meetups here in San Diego about half the time.
Right.
So November 21st. So Thursday, about 2 weeks from now. Come join us. Hope to see you there. And we're out.
All right, adios.
All right.
Not your keys.
And not your crypto.
There you go.
Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.